But this morning we're doing the Coffee Mornings episode 12, Purpose Gaps, Risking Talent, Productivity and Profit. But before we get into that, what's in your cup?
It's about consistency, I believe, and it's still Red Bull.
It's still Red Bull.
And they're still not sponsored us.
We have to ask them again. Let's keep tagging them.
Christian Horner, if you're listening.
Yeah.
I need an F1 car.
Yeah.
And a sponsor.
Yeah. So now I've gone for the classic black coffee, decaf.
Nice.
That's where I'm at today.
Decaf?
Yeah. I feel like I get too much caffeine. So just to kind of bring it down a notch, less jittery.
A cool,
age, mate.
Cool, calming coffee.
That's the idea. But this is quite an interesting podcast today. So Purpose Gaps. We're going to be talking a lot about what it means ultimately, some of the things that we've seen as recruiters in the UK, and how people can navigate through it, and hopefully people can go, actually learn something today, or they might not.
Yeah, we go, yeah, I know what it is, and you've not quite hit the nail on the head, or
you've told me nothing I don't already know. I mean, that could be likely.
We'll see.
Yeah, it could be likely.
We'll see.
So, what's your interpretation of this as like a topic?
So, my understanding, my interpretation is effectively it's all around the reason the company exists beyond just making a profit.
Yeah.
Which is obviously one thing, super important. Without profit, there's not a lot of businesses, but it's kind of the differentiator beyond that to kind of say, okay, why are we actually here? What is the purpose of
what's the angle? Yeah.
What's the angle? What's the reason that we kind of bring ourselves to work and do it? Which I think's obviously always been there, but I think it's something that probably resonates a lot more with business owners.
I think so, definitely.
And senior leadership. And I think what we're finding now is that historically, if you look at older generations where it's kind of been, you just need a job.
Yep.
Especially with Gen Zs and millennials, it's something that's becoming more and more at the forefront, where it's kind of saying, okay, what's the purpose of me actually doing this job?
Yeah.
Which kind of roles, and I think more so with companies than the actual job itself, but the actual company's values, and does it align with my own?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that, because you see it a lot more. But people go, it's a job, great, I can do the job, like the people, but what's the company all about? What do they do more than just making a profit? Or even, to be fair, there is lots that are challenges, like challenger banks, for example, biotechs, like startups, scale-ups, innovative kind of technologies that are looking to challenge the man or whatever it is. And actually, I think there's a big part of that's evolved over the past 10 years, probably, I would have thought.
Definitely.
You didn't see as much of it. But I think, of course, you did. I think there was always smaller organisations, but there was always like I suppose a pull to go and work for a big company because they had the brand. And I suppose no one was thinking about purpose because they was thinking more just career and finance and be able to get up that ladder and all that good stuff. I think as the way of work has evolved, and now we talk more about balance and how work can fit into your life, I think people need a reason more than just a paycheck to go to work.
Yeah. And
definitely millennials, Gen Z are seeing that they want it more. So increasingly, I think employers are having to do a better job to go, well, what are we doing then as an organisation? Particularly if you are a bank or like a big establishment, you've been trading for X amount of years already. What we're doing, you just want us to do more. It's not really enough. It's not really enough anymore, is it?
Yeah.
Anymore.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think with those startups and with those challenges, even if you kind of frame it into, fintech and bio, the kind of avenue has always been, this is just how things are done. And I think with that fintech space, especially like 10 years ago, you didn't really hear about fintech. It wasn't really a thing.
No.
Or in its very, very early infancy. And I think that's where that purpose is kind of coming from, to kind of say, these are challenges that I face, and I can kind of now be a part of a company that can help that. You think of, just thinking of examples like the story around how World Remit was kind of formed in terms of, people, the founder kind of saying it's difficult for me to transfer money abroad to my family. There's the pain point, and that's the purpose. But then something that people work in the organisation kind of really get behind as well, who are in similar situations.
Yep.
And kind of those examples.
That's a really good one, actually. What about like the
or bios, for example?
Yeah, bios do it. I think a lot of the time it's a funny thing I always think with bios, because they tend to be the whole concept of it stems from a lot of time academia. So they're academics that then want to, might have some novel science or whatever it may be, or technology or a platform and whatnot. And usually what happens is a pharma company would take those individuals, take that IP, and then they would develop it themselves. But I think the market's got quite savvy, and now universities almost buddy up with venture capitalist companies to kind of go, well, really, the technology and the science is all there. You just need the finance and the funding. So now we can actually back your technology with capital, and you can go and build a company with the right resources and everything in hand. And the cool thing about that is, and I think this goes for any technology company or any startup that is VC backed, you have to have a strong why. Like, why are you doing this? Like, what is the purpose? Why can't, what makes this different to what Barclays are doing or GSK are doing or whatever it may be? And there's this strong why from the start. So then that whole image, that picture, that vision is built from like the ground up. And I think that's really cool. And it's really easy to sell that to people, to say, this is like a really innovative technology. It's a new platform. It's a different way to send money, or it's a different way we're going to treat cancer. And it's got X amount of funding. It's backed by these people. We're going to grow it like this. And this is the end goal. And this is the target. Bang. It's quite exciting. And it's not to knock any like big operation at all, but just to say, oh, do you want to go and work for a big organisation? It's stable. It's good. It's great. You have to stay for a few years, sit in that seat, earn your stripes, and then maybe you'll get promoted. It's a bit like, yeah, it's good, like good bonuses and packages, etc. But you're never going to get as much exposure as you're going to get in a smaller environment. So it's easier to define. You can pivot really fast in like a startup as well. So if things aren't going quite right, you just change it. You can we do that a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's always been a big part of what we've tried to do, is we find an issue, a challenge or whatever, we change it. And COVID was a good pivot point for us, and was able just to literally spin it on a dime. And it reminds me of like when COVID actually came around, when we was all in the office. Do you remember upstairs? And obviously you had to kind of pack up your stuff and go home, didn't you?
Yeah, it was pretty much overnight, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you talk to a lot of people and they were like, right, well, we haven't got the technology, everything's all in an office in London or whatever. How are we going to get all these people back to work? Having to buy laptops and technology and change the way we did it. We literally looked at each other and went, cool, so just take your laptop home and I'll see you in the morning.
Yeah. Does anyone need a monitor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Monitor?
Yeah, literally drove around to the flat. It's like, right, put the monitor in the back of the car and take a charger, and I'll see you in the morning on Teams.
That was it. That really was. Like, it was such an easy transition. I know the actual working.
I think they call that agile in project management.
Oh, is that what it was? Agile. Yeah, we was definitely agile in that sense.
But yeah, it's in a startup. It's exactly that. You can change so quickly, and I think after COVID, there was a change of people's mindset as well.
Yeah.
Because it's always the conversations that we have a lot of time is, in the most case, if you're working in a startup or scale up, you have more autonomy, you have more ownership.
Yeah.
But the risk is obviously that it's not as secure as going to work for Barclays or going to work for Coke. So it's always kind of that balance between security and purpose, and how much I'm going to be able to progress and have that autonomy. And I think with COVID, people kind of looked at it and gone, do you know what? How many massive companies have had to make mass layoffs, furlough?
Huge.
All of a sudden, people's eyes were opened up a lot to say, things can change very quickly. So I think that shift has kind of moved more to purpose, in kind of saying, yes, I can work for the big organisations where I've got the security, maybe getting paid more and I'm more secure. But I think a lot of people kind of looked and said, well, at any point, this can all kind of come crumbling down, or something major can happen, and the security's not there anymore. So I might as well do something that I enjoy and want to do as well.
We saw a massive fight for talent as well, though, didn't we? You think COVID, everything stopped literally overnight, and then give it 6 weeks for us, was it? Literally, and we was back in the game. But then it was so hard to find good talent for us. And then all of a sudden, it was like what was going on is people was poaching all the time, left, right, and centre. I got quite a lot of headhunt emails and stuff like that, and I was okay. But everyone did. Everybody did, and I think that then gave people an opportunity to think of, okay, there's a lot of opportunity out there. Why would I pick this one over the next one? And I think this is where purpose gaps really come into its own, because there's got to be and there definitely are organisations that do remarkably well, and you can be making a ton of money or doing something really cool, but if the end goal's not in sight or the reason's not there, and you're just waking up doing it every day and just doing the grind every single day for week in and week out, and you're not seeing it, it's so easy just to slip and be like, what the fuck am I doing here? It pays well, looks great, but there's no vision here. There's no...
Well, we kind of went through it in that kind of first year out of COVID. We went exactly through that. It's kind of, right, we've defined the business a lot more. We've kind of know exactly kind of where we're at. And it was so tunnel vision that it was just like, it was literally like, right, we're back in the office, we're kind of going. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it was like, right, that was a good year. It's like, what do you mean it was a good year?
I know.
It literally overnight. And we kind of took a step back and gone, wow, okay, we've kind of put all these visions and values in place, but we've not kind of looked at the bigger picture and gone, where's that end goal and what does that look like?
Funny enough,
because you're going to get caught up in the day-to-day a little bit too much as well.
Do you know what? I think this was 2021, wasn't it? So this is 2020 into 2021. And when we looked at 2020, didn't we? And go, it might be 2020, I can't remember. And we started looking at, okay, what did we actually achieve last year? And I think the biggest thing that we said was billings. Like, we managed to place a ton of people, revenue was really good, we definitely defined ourselves better. But it was like, what were the negatives? And it was almost like, that's all we did.
Yeah.
That's all we did. We didn't innovate anything, we didn't change anything, we didn't really think further than what was happening.
No, we didn't really grow at all.
Didn't really grow, no. And I think for us as a business, we took that minute to go, right, what did we learn from that experience? And then just started getting better at it. It wasn't an overnight success, was it? I think from that point it was like, right, we need to think more than it's just about placing people in jobs. It's about giving people better opportunity, more progression, thinking strategically about the business, and then creating a journey people can follow. And that's one thing I know I've been trying to do better at, actually going, this is the actual vision, this is what's in my head and what we can do as a business. And then when I think about the way I've promoted Northreach to you guys as employees over the past 3 years, it's changed dramatically in terms of, okay, let's not look at just what we've done and what we're about to do, but where it can go and why we want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that was the big thing for me, to kind of go, well, what is the plan? Because I had to look at myself a little bit and go, well, what's your plan, Sam? Like, where are you going? What are you? And I have those moments all the time where it's like, we're doing well, and hey, wherever you define that is your own, I suppose, your own journey. Money's coming in, company's starting to grow, we've got a new office, all these things are happening, but then there's that bit underneath it that goes, but why is this so important? Like, what's in underneath it all? It's like when we hire here, right? It's like, what motivates you? What's that fire in your belly just to keep going? Because it has to be something raw, it has to be something real. But companies, I think, get so blinded by the idea it's just delivery. It's it. But that's a massive part of it, because without the revenue, there is no business. Or if there's no research and there's no delivery on the back end of it.
There's no progress on it.
There's no progress. So I think it's just about creating a story and thinking about the people you've got, what the gaps kind of look like, and then saying, this is the journey I want to take you all on. Do you want to get on the bus or not? That's kind of where I feel like a lot of purpose-led companies can do better. We can do better. I'm always going to say that, but that's my 2 pence on it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even from our day-to-day in terms of working with our clients, the companies that have a clear purpose are the ones that are 10 times easier to kind of sell to candidates, and the ones that candidates have a lot more interest in. Typically they have better processes because they're not just caught up in the P&L. They're kind of looking at it and going, okay, how do we really get people involved? And when people are joining an organisation, you think, how long do you spend at work? You have to kind of really want to do it. It doesn't become a chore almost. You kind of want to go to work and feel that you're actually driving towards something, both for yourself and for the wider picture as well. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think, like I said, there's a big generational divide. I always think back to kind of my grandparents, and it was like, my first job out of, I was going to say university there, but that'd be a white lie. My first job out of college. Out of college. And it was, pretty woeful.
Was it?
Paid by cheque. That used to bounce.
Did it really?
Yeah, it was self-employed.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of a grey area in terms of employment law, probably. But either way, did that for 9 months and said, look, I can't do it anymore. It's like, costing me more money to go to work than I'm actually getting paid.
Jeez.
You know, after a beer at the end of the week. So I said to my granddad, you know, I'm going to change your job. And he went, well, you know, just stick it out, see how it goes. You know, you're secure. And it's kind of that generational mindset. And I'm going back. Yeah, I'm going back, you know, a fair few generations here. But it's like, you've got a job, just stick in it, stick with it, and they'll look after you.
Yeah.
You know, and he'd worked at the same company for, you know, 40 years.
It's funny,
and
though.
his dad had worked at the same company for 60 years.
Yeah.
That was that kind of mindset.
Yeah, it's funny because I know we've done this backwards, but the next podcast we speak about, we talk about this, don't we, in terms of like loyalty and trust, in terms of performance. So that comes into it, doesn't it? I think that the older generation felt like that. You didn't have to be like a high-flying, crazy, great performer. No. But if you were loyal, you was looked after.
Yeah. And I'd argue that probably was the case a hell of a lot more. Yeah. I think just the way the world works has changed.
Yeah, I think so. It is more performance-led now. I think people are very quick. I want to say quick to make decisions. I suppose they're quick to pivot because the market can change on a sixpence now. On a sixpence, look at that. That's an old way of saying it. Yeah. On a dime, literally. So, but where they are more startups, you'll have to find the stats for me on this one, Devriti. So we actually got Devriti and Mike. This is the first time I've actually done it because we found out that she actually has some useful information to share.
I think Devriti's probably got the most useful information to share.
But I'd like to know, right, so what is the kind of stat between big companies against SMEs in the UK compared to, like, maybe, I don't know if it's going into so much detail, between like the 90s and now? I wonder whether or not there was a lot more larger organisations then, hence why they could keep people on for longer. If they went through dips, it wouldn't matter so much. So when you think about SMEs, and they are literally from one-man bands right up to like 100-200 odd people, if they go through hardship times, unless you've got a shitload of funding, how do you get through that without reducing your headcount? So then that loyalty piece probably isn't as much, maybe.
No, that's the difficulty. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, there's some stats. There is some stats here as well. So Gen Zs and millennials, so 18 to 34.
Is it 18 to 34?
I thought it was more than 34. Maybe you are a boomer, Sam.
I think they do it like by actual years though, because I'm 36 and I'm still a millennial. I'll always be a millennial.
Yeah, I think it changes.
It's the year I was born, wasn't it?
Yeah. So there we go. So Gen Zs and millennials, 18 to 36, we'll go with. Newest entrance to the workforce. Digital natives, socially conscious, have grown up in a world where information is readily available.
Yeah.
So according to the same YouGov survey, Gen Z and younger millennials are more likely to vote with their feet, with 57% of these age groups likely to leave a company that lacks purpose. This is a significant increase compared to the overall average of 50%.
Wow.
Even half's quite high, though.
It's really high.
It's higher than I thought it'd be, because I thought there's been a lot of people that I reckon a lot of people kind of say, I do the job because it pays my bills.
Yeah.
But it's not what I'd love to do.
Yeah. I think that still exists a hell of a lot. You could talk that one in school. I remember this really well. So my deputy, I think it was the deputy head of Birki school that I went to, sat me down. You know, you have those like counselling sessions where they say, career counsellors, and they go, right, you know, what do you want to do? My grades were never great. Like, they were very bang average, and that's being kind. And she sat me down. She said something. It was a crazy stat. Maybe she's made it up, but it was almost like at that point, up to like 70% of people hate their jobs. Do you want to be in that 70%? And I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like, no, thank you. And it always sticks in my brain. And her stat might be completely wrong, but I think it's irrelevant at this point, because I just thought,
it's the message behind it.
The message behind it was, do you want to just get stuck in a dead-end job, or do you want to do something you really like? And you got to do something about it. And I think that was a change even then for me. And that's 20 years ago. I always thought that. I thought, I'll only work for people that I could genuinely see a vision with. And I went through a couple of roles, and I was a very difficult person to manage when I was young. I probably still am now. But it was only because, I don't think I could ever articulate it right, is that I looked at the leads, and looked at the seniors, and I looked at their way they held themselves and what they were doing, how they were acting. And I remember seeing some of these guys that literally just managed, like literally feet on top of the table, you do this, you do this, you do this, and did absolutely fuck all day. And I just thought, I can't respect that. I can't follow that. It looks great, but that's not what I wanted. And it took a few places for me to find even when I went to Aston Carter, that was the first place that I felt like this had purpose and it was bigger than me, and it was like a cohort, and it grew and it had legs and it had depth and friendship, and it was that for me was like an incredible change. But it was because of Sean Zimdall, who was like the CEO at the time of just Aston Carter before he got bought by Allegis. He was so kind of charismatic in his leadership, and he wasn't always visible, but you knew there was a plan, and he communicated so clearly, and you just bought in. It was just like, and he used to have a saying, and he was like, "You bleed green," and you did. Like that was it. If you was in, and it did feel a little bit cultish when I think back on it, but I loved it, and the purpose was there. I used to get headhunted all the time, and I remember Phil and I got headhunted by these guys, and we wasted their time ultimately. But you know, they headhunted us, and we was billing a load of money for the company. I was doing Microsoft technology, and I think as a team we had like over 350 contractors between like 8 of us.
Wow.
All investment banking, hedge funds and that kind of stuff. I had like 40, 50 out at the point, and this guy rings me up and says, yeah, look, we're looking to hire, we think you'd be great. And Phil had the same sort of call, so we went together, met the MD, and it was a commodities, like, you know, in the recruitment company. And the guy literally offered us £120,000 each, right? 120 grand each, basic salaries, you know, plus guarantees and bits and pieces went into that. And I think I was like 23, 24. And I remember we left and just laughed and went, nah, this just wasn't enough money to make it worthwhile at that point. But it was because we knew what we had back at home ultimately was this engine that was just amazing. And I think that whole vision for Sean back then is that he just wanted to be the best and meant it and lived it every day, and everyone just followed it. So that was really, really cool. Really, that was definitely something I could get involved with. Yeah,
definitely. It's really interesting to kind of hear that as well. And I think so often people look at it and say, you know, I'll make an offer that, you know, you can't refuse. Not to quote The Godfather, but you know, if it's an offer that you can't refuse, you know, it happens. But then it does come down to, well, why am I doing it for?
Yeah.
To use a red hot off the press news article, Jordan Henderson, arguably one of England's best midfielders of all time.
Talk to me about this, because I've seen some of the bits yesterday.
Yeah.
Actually,
so
I've
captain
got
of Liverpool,
stats in my phone as well. Actually.
Captain of Liverpool, Mr. Liverpool, great leader. He's been offered 4 times his current salary to go and play for Saudi.
That is insane, isn't it?
Well, in the Saudi league. So he's been offered 700 grand a week, which is a hell of a lot of money for Jordan Henderson. Isn't it? Yeah, like enough to set your family up for life. And I know people say, well, look, you know, you're a footballer, you're already earning, say, £150,000 a week.
Yeah,
it's an astronomical difference. But then it kind of boils down into this purpose piece, because Henderson's quite clearly been very pro LGBTQ+, which obviously is another talking point around the Saudi League and the moral side of things. So it then comes down to it. It's like, well, what do you value more? Yeah, you know, you can leave. You'll set your family and for generations and generations and generations. But also it kind of goes down to, well, what do you actually value and what's your purpose? Do you want to go over there and you know, play for Gerrard and earn a decent few quid, or do you want to stay in the Premier League and fight for titles and that side of things? So it does come down to that. And I think with this purpose gap, I always have these conversations, and I think it comes in a lot more at the senior level. And the reasoning behind this, at least in my mind at least, is when you're kind of pushing, you know, the kind of top 10% of UK salaries, let's say. So you're kind of, you know, even in that sort of, you know, 70, 80, 90, 100k salary bracket, you kind of get to the point where it's like, okay, my lifestyle is what it is. So I can afford to not be on the, you know, the 100 grand a year. I can drop down 20 grand.
Yeah.
Because my lifestyle won't change dramatically.
The taxman's getting it either way, right?
Yeah, the taxman's going to get it either way. So I can kind of have those conversations. But if you're in the kind of, you know, the kind of lower mid-end brackets, it's difficult to say I'm going to drop my salaries by 10 grand to go and work.
Or even a couple of grand.
Or even a couple of grand, yeah. You know, because all of a sudden it's like the money in the back pocket at the end of the month has a much bigger impact than when you're at that higher level. And if it, you know, and at the point where you are at that higher level, you've kind of probably already got a good runway of cash if it doesn't work out. And I think it all boils down into that risk piece as well. But then it kind of goes the other way. At the youngest, if you go to the people that are just going into employment, it's like, if I'm living at home or with mum and dad,
yeah,
I've not got a lot of overheads. I can take those risks. I can go travelling, or I can kind of say, right, I don't want to just go and work for Barclays and I'll stay there for 20 years. And
I love it how we always bash Barclays.
Yeah, do you know what it is? I think it's just Merton's years of bashing Barclays because he doesn't really like using their mortgage services, but whatever it may be. But either way, you kind of can go to the big bank and work there for multiple years, or you can say, do you know what, I want to try and do something I actually really want to work in and have a passion about and I'm interested in, not just something that's going to pay me well.
Yeah, and this is interesting. There's a stat around this. There's 80% of all UK employees would go the extra mile for a purpose-led organisation.
100%.
So you're right. I think in there itself, it does mean, to a degree, that people will sacrifice leaving for bigger salaries and take more risks, for example, if the business is more purpose-led. And isn't that a good thing? If you're definitely struggling with people in general in your organisation, which many people do, it's not easy, particularly when you're scaling. If you're hiring 10, 15, 20 people a week, a month, whatever it may be, and that scale continues through a course of a year and you end up with 120, 150 people, how do you ensure that values and all the kind of communication you've done right at the get-go transcends all the way through? It's got to be nails hard, and there's going to be loads of fallout. But if the message stays true and the values are reinforced and the purpose is reinforced and the whys are reinforced, that every 1-to-1, every quarterly town hall meeting or whatever it is, you're more likely to retain your staff, ultimately engage them more.
Yeah, I think it's just people. If you're in an organisation and you actually genuinely go, do you know what this business is trying to achieve, I'm on board with.
Yeah,
you just genuinely give more of a shit.
Yeah,
and I think it kind of boils into our episode about quiet quitting as well.
Yeah,
and it's like, how can we avoid losing staff? It's like, well, in my mind, if someone's actually really bought into the organisation and they go, do you know what, we're a sustainability organisation, I'm really passionate about environmental sustainability, you probably are more likely to put the hard graft in than if you go, I'm just helping an unnamed bank with a blue logo that sponsored the Premier League. I'm helping them, improve their stock price.
Yeah.
Some people might go, do you know what, I absolutely love that world. I love the stocks and shares. I love living that life, and that's what I want to do.
It's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this.
No.
Aim for the moon. Aim for the
shoot the stars.
Shoot the stars and land on the moon.
Yeah.
That sort of saying, where it's this thing. It could be that my purpose is I just want to have a good laugh, enjoy what I do, enough that I can do it every day.
Yeah.
And I can make some good coin along the way.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that it's like entirely built into your values, your ethos to that degree where it's like I would run through walls.
It doesn't have to, but I think it almost comes back to, and it is a generational thing, and I think the only reason why millennials are in that world, Gen Z particularly, is the technology pace that we've seen over the past 20 years. You look back on all those generations gone past and some of the stuff we spoke about between the relationship between a cassette and a pencil, and that will bamboozle people in their 20s have no idea. Yeah. But as a millennial, remember that. I was there for that period. But then you're seeing it from this point of view where everything is instant. You go on your TV now, and if you want to watch a film, you just watch a film, right? You click of a button, you're there. You don't have the wait anymore, and the information is so readily available. And particularly if other people around you in a similar situation as you are doing well or progressing quicker, there is that, well, why am I not getting that? And they're almost looking at employers going, why am I not? Why is my progression not being as quickly advanced as other people? And I think that's really where a lot of it's coming from, because you have the information now. You know that Monzo, for example, or Sum Up, a lot. I was going to use the word better solutions. It's probably not better solutions because they're probably actually quite similar. But their purpose and their target markets and their branding and everything is so much more purpose driven to more of a younger, quicker generation than an older investment bank or a boutique bank. So I think there's a big part of it there, and you do it as a human, right? I don't really like social media in terms of like the the pressure it puts on people. Is you always see it, this like 70-year-old lad or girl that's like a multi-millionaire for like whatever reason, and you kind of look at it and go, how the fuck did you do that? And why have I not got that? And you start looking your own life and go, what am I doing wrong then? And I think you start literally doing that and going, well, if I haven't got purpose or drive or reason to do things, I'm just not going to do it, because that's where I want to be. So I think there's a lot of influence from that perspective as well.
Yeah, I think social media is a massive one in terms of
huge.
This false persona of people's lives as well.
I hate that so much.
Yeah,
Like,
you see, often you go to, you go out to restaurants and you see people and they kind of, getting the, people are literally just sitting there on their phones. They, they bring out a bottle of champagne and the sparklers. Everyone's, laughing, dancing, celebrating, film it. It's done and it's gone, and then they're back on their phones. It's like people aren't enjoying the moment and trying to show people what they're doing.
It's hard to get people's attention though, isn't it? I think that's another thing.
Yeah. So a little bit of a divergence there, but it's still in that same space as well in terms of what it actually looks like.
I think Sam, so. Just on so there's no stats as such on that, but your analogy is correct, because that was the time when baby boomers, so they're like post World War II people, basically the generation, and that was the time when there was industrialization and economic growth, with sectors such as manufacturing, automotive, energy, so bigger corporations were established and were growing, so they probably grew with them. So the roles were very different back then, and there was very little to no competitions because industries were just building then. And then cut to now, present state, it's more technology driven organizations. The type of roles are different. The gap between small and medium enterprises and the bigger corporations is reducing. There's more opportunities, so maybe that's the reason to a certain extent, like you said.
There you go. That's why we gave her a mic.
Absolutely. Summed up perfectly. Something that we've been trying to explain in 30 minutes. Yeah,
Reese's managed to do it like 2. No, it's perfect. It actually makes good sense, doesn't it? I suppose, like you say, there wasn't as much competition. To have a job ultimately was great. You put food on the table, you look after your family, whatever it is. Fast forward 20, 30 odd years, and it's like opportunities far more available. Technology has revolutionised that industry from way back when it was more manufacturing and engineering and whatnot, to more of just laptop, office environment, go to you know. So you could then get more people. Didn't all have to be engineers, did they?
No.
For example, or work down a mine or whatever it may be.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Love
exactly.
that.
And I think that in terms of career paths as well, it was always, if you look at, boomers as well, it was always the kind of, you work your way up into management, and how do you do that? By staying there for loads of time. Yeah. And if you're lucky, you'll get your shot.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky, you'll get your shot. You should be thankful that you've got a job.
Yeah, there is always that. Here's an interesting point next. Pay cuts for purpose.
I'll throw this back on you.
Oh, go on.
So you obviously, were doing quite well, and then decided, do you know what, I want to do it myself.
True.
So you've kind of taken away all of that security.
Yeah.
How did it?
Just thinking about that.
Yeah, I was going to say I can stop if you want, sir. Do we need to cut on this?
Just breathe.
Yeah. So I'll kind of throw it back on you. So like you've done it, right? In terms of.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so I did do that. I was going to say I don't think many people would do it. I still don't think many people would do it.
No.
I think you're mental.
I don't think everyone can do it.
No, you can't always do it. I think I was very fortunate personally that from a very young age, I always knew that I wanted to do something. I knew that I wasn't an easy person to manage, but I knew I needed to learn. I found a purpose-led organisation for a period of time, and then I felt that purpose left. For me, anyway. For them it didn't. They had a whole different direction, a whole different idea of what good looked like and where they want to take the business. Yeah. But I think for me at that point, I'd made quite a lot of money. I was a shareholder, those vested, bought a house. All these things that you do within your 20s, you aspire to, I had already completed. So by the time I was like 28, I was like, well, what's next? I can take more risk. So it's interesting, isn't it, when I think about it for myself. So I was 28 years old. I didn't have tons of money in the bank. Because here's a funny story. So what actually happened for me is that I earned a load of money, but I was never being taxed correctly. I ended up with an £80,000 tax bill just before I started Northridge, just before it. And there was this to and fro.
Laughing now, but it probably wasn't funny at the time.
I didn't take it that seriously. I literally thought, you'll be fine.
HMRC are pretty serious people.
Yeah,
They're
apparently.
Don't think I'd want to go for a drink with them. But
no. But the funny thing is, I called up HMRC 3 or 4 or 5 times, saying, I think I owe you this money. And they were like, no, we'll tell you if you owe us money. So I was thinking,
next day.
Result.
Put the phone down and get a call. Yeah, you owe us money.
I never got a call.
Really?
Never. 3 years I didn't pay tax properly for. So I earned all this excess kind of cash. I knew in the back of my mind I owed it in some capacity, so I just kept it in an account. And so I had a load of money, and I started Northridge, and I thought, fuck, like, I can't have this hanging over me, because I have to now do all my own tax returns, not just for myself like I usually had to, which was strange because I had to do my own tax returns, but they still weren't picking it up. But then I had to do it for Northridge. Then I thought, well, how am I going to navigate this piece? So I had basically used a lot of my savings to get rid of that £80,000 debt and then just start again. So then I was in this situation where I started Northridge, had the plan, had the idea, Ben come on board, and I was like, right, let's just take a risk and let's just kind of go with it. And over time, the actual risk paid the reward ultimately, but I feel like I was in a position to do it. I don't think would I have done it? Maybe I would have done. I'm not that much of a risk taker. I don't think I would have done it if I hadn't already done these things and already learned the industry and actually understood what purpose led even meant. I think if I did it really, really young and I was just doing it myself, I wouldn't have had a mentor. I wouldn't have had all these other kind of things that I could have.
Battle scars to kind of remind yourself.
And I've got a load of them.
There was so much pain in your voice when you said that as well.
I have. I've got a lot of stories from then, and a lot of them are very good. A lot of them are very triggering, is probably the right word. And I think that was also why it meant so much more when we started it. So it just meant more that I wanted to do something for our clients that I'd worked with Aston Carter and Allegis that I just felt like we weren't doing. And they had a very cookie-cutter approach to actually how, you work with clients and this, that and the other, and I just didn't feel it. It's not to say they were wrong, I just wasn't feeling it. It wasn't me, it wasn't my style. They wanted me to be this like high performer in terms of all this billings and make all this money, and I was never that guy. I was always more of a relationship person. I could bring work in better than most people, but I could never deliver to it all like most people. So I was stuck in this weird bit, and I thought, well, if people like me enough and they can believe in my story, then that will give me the confidence, I suppose, to actually start Northreach and start making my own stamp on the market. Plus, I went for a completely different market. I wanted to do more smaller companies that actually felt that want to be more purpose-led. Getting those phone calls from big investment banks with blue logos just going, we need another contract. I'm like, I really couldn't give a shit because I don't even know why anymore, and I actually don't even care anymore. Yeah, because I don't know why we're doing it either. So, I think it made sense for me to take a pay cut and take that risk at that time because my purpose had left from what my employer then, and I created my own one. Yeah,
and I think it's important to kind of think about that as well. That purpose isn't something that you kind of etch in stone and say that is what my purpose is. Because as as you kind of people go through life, their purpose will change. Yeah, you have families, you have responsibilities. Your whole outlook on life will change as well. What's important to you
that's the other
right now won't be important to you in 10 years' time.
Well, that's very true. And even think about that. Northridge been 8 years. 10 years ago, I was definitely not thinking the way I was today. It's only because I've got different responsibility now. I have my own family, which is one thing, and then I have you guys, which is another thing. So, but between the two of them, I'm responsible for like 25 people, which is a lot. When you sleep at night going, flipping heck, like this is my purpose has to be strong. I've got to know why I'm doing it. So I think there is good reason and rationale why people would take a pay cut for it, but I think it's still a risk, and it depends on what you want. I think, do you know what's interesting enough? I think scientists do this a hell of a lot when you really think about what they do. Yeah, so incredible. I take my hat off to them, really, because you think they go through life, they're super intelligent, they go through all like a bachelor's and master's, and then they go on to do a PhD. So you're working for about 7-10 years, earning like 40-50 grand a year, and you kind of think it's not bad, but then you think what you could have done in that time in terms of earning potential could be tenfold to that, way more. And it's the passion and the purpose that's the only thing that drives them. You cannot sell like an IT developer. Like you can't sell them just money anymore. You have to be like, it has to be something interesting. Otherwise, I'm just not getting out of bed.
Yeah.
But scientists do the same. They go, science is science, but unless it's this particular science is something that's actually resonating with me, it's not for me.
Exactly.
So you do see it in those kind of technical roles like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's
NHS workers.
Yeah, NHS workers, doctors, it's the same thing. It's like
they definitely don't live for the money.
No, teachers.
Teachers
is another one.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. I think it's about, and it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier in terms of, I think purpose typically comes, in terms of people kind of saying I'm going to take the risk, typically comes to people that are more evolved down their journey. But then it's kind of like, well, okay, if I'm a business owner, I'm a thought leader in the business, how can we actually make sure that everyone in the business feels our purpose? Because it's very easy to kind of say, we're the board of directors, we're going to sit around this round table and we're going to say this is where we need to go, and then you kind of say to everyone else, now go and make it happen.
Yeah.
So it's how do you kind of embed everyone into that process and make everyone's kind of, I think we do it really well because everyone has a voice here.
Everyone's got a voice. I think,
and everyone has their own. Yeah.
You make it clear first of all, and you set it straight, and I think it's so easy to think, well, this is what we're going to live by, and the we is actually more what they're going to live by. And I see this a lot with different organisations. I talk to like C-level people, and they go, yeah, these are our values. But then when you see how they operate on a day-to-day, you go, no, you're fucking not. No. You're telling them to do that, but you're not doing it.
Yeah, well, so you go down to the golf club.
Yeah, right. And don't get me wrong, there's different roles and different times that people work on this kind of stuff. So I'm not knocking everybody, but I've definitely seen it where it's more like I've done it for them. They've done culture, they've done values, so we've done that. And it's like, what do you fucking mean you've done it? That makes no sense, because the only person that everyone is always looking at is you. You're at the top of the tree. You're the one we're following. So you're the one who has to actually set the pace and the standard and what that actually means, and live by it day by day, week to week, month to month. Something that Sean Zimdale definitely done very well when I was at Aston Carter Elite, just because he was doing it. You couldn't fault it, not really. Maybe you could, because it was too good almost. But you see other leaders and go, you're definitely just faking it. Like, you've just been given that shot and you've done a good job. So I think that's the first thing. Create it clear, make it happen. You mentioned it. Get people involved.
Yeah.
Get them involved. If you can't dictate a culture and a way of working
and a purpose, it has to be right for everybody. So feedback, ask them, talk to them. We do a lot of mind map sessions, don't we? I like to do more of those and actually just brainstorm this. Let's get some ideas from what do you want. Sometimes people don't know what they want, but at least get the feedback and understand where's the similarities, where are the themes here, where as a collective of people, this is what they enjoy. Everyone here wants a bloody microwave. For God's sake. I was like, I'm not even going to get into that. We'll get one eventually. So living the values through is definitely right there. How you do this part is interesting. So it talks here, looking at some of these notes, about integrating the values into employee life cycle. Now, I think this comes down to the activity and the actual expectation of people. So sometimes it's like we said, it's not just about creating revenue. There's two roles in a company, right? Creating revenue and saving revenue. It's not much in between. But then it's setting that expectation, not just doing your job. It's about how you can do your job by living through those values, always aiming towards that goal. There might not be the ultimate goal at the end of the day, but it could just be a 3-month plan, a 6-month plan, a 1-year plan, always just working on it and then reinforcing it with, but this is why we're doing it, this is why we're doing it, this is why we're doing it. And kind of throws back to Whiffam. What's in it for me?
Yeah. So I think that's quite
definitely. Well, it's exactly what we've spoken about. Create that clear and inspiring vision, involve your people. Because I think that's the massive one. You can't just tell people this is what we're going to strive towards and what we want to achieve, because then you're helping someone else achieve their goals. And that's kind of where I think a lot of people drop off. It's like, I'm helping the shareholders, I'm helping the CEO buy a new boat. What am I actually helping achieve?
I'd love a boat. Can you do some more deals so I can buy a boat?
They are good.
They are good. You've got a boat, just do it.
Loosely.
But a lot of the notes that Dev Reese's kind of prepared for us here is I completely back, and I think that we're trying to do better of is re-look at that purpose, evolve it, get people involved, give them a platform to talk about it, what's working, what's not working, how we can change it. I love this one, make employees heroes. So give the people the story, the purpose, and recognise when people are living it, and get them to be your advocate.
Yeah.
Building cohorts within it, I think it's a really clever way of doing it. I know we really want to do this social and sports committee, right? There's something that I'm really trying to get off the ground, and it's nearly done. I'm really nearly ready to kind of share with what's going to happen. Actually, we'll give a bit of insight into the workings of this, Robbie. So we're going to tender it.
Really?
Yeah, De Vries's idea. So I said to her yesterday, I was right. So I built the scripts. I know exactly what we need. So we want a chairperson, chair chief. I think that's what I want to call it. And they're going to have a cohort of people, right? But we've got to appoint the chairperson first.
Yeah.
But there's questions that I'm thinking, well, what kind of budget do we need? What responsibilities do we need? How are we going to incentivise the chairman and the actual cohort to deliver this committee? And De Vries was like, well, why don't you put that in questions and get people to answer it? So if you want to be the chairperson, you can. Yep, I want to be the chairperson. Here are a couple of questions. You're interested.
Early. I think there's a few people that got their hands up.
Have they? Yeah. I love the rumours. The rumours are good.
Here we go.
Yeah. But I think this is quite interesting, and this for me, does it make you more purpose-led? I think so, because again, it goes outside of just billing and clients and doing the job. This is more about building community and actually having people that have a voice that changes the way we actually work. Week to week and month to month, quarter to quarter. So for me, the social sports committee is a great way just to get people to think about, right, what can we do as a collective of individuals here at Northwich and bring them together to give us a better USP for the organisation, but actually doing stuff that we love doing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it's going to go.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a really good way of doing it as well, and it's those things that aren't just related to driving profit.
Yeah.
If anything, and they kind of said we're
taking money.
Yeah, we're taking money.
Yeah.
But it's it does it kind of pays itself off in the long term.
Yeah. I think
it's those sorts of things where it's like it's not just turn up and do your job. It's like, okay, how can we actually make this something more than what it is?
I just wanted it enjoyable. I think that's kind of where I get off, because the job's difficult at the best of times. We have to deal with people all day long, and they're the most complex. They're the most complex item you can sell. I just don't see if there's many other complex items like it. I could even go down a road saying, like, multifaceted ERP solutions that run globally and matrix or APIs, and that is not as complex as people. No. It's not,
because the ERP system can't turn around and say, "Sorry, I forgot to tell you I'm moving to France."
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. We still need to do that. We need to do a podcast and just purely the funniest and greatest reasons why people don't sign up for an interview. So, but yeah, I think that's a
story for another day.
For another day, for sure. But there you go. There's some good ways to actually cultivate some purpose in organisation. And actually, do you know what it all really boils down to? And you don't have to overcomplicate it. I think it's the beauty. You really don't. I think you could probably look at it and go, whoa, this is a lot. You go, it's not.
No.
It's just kind of saying, this is where we want to go. And then bite-size it. And do you know what? Actually, a lot of time, it's just fucking talking.
Yeah.
Just communicating. It might not be right every time, but at least people know more where they stand.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think it's exactly that. It's how do you make people give a shit about what you're doing?
Yeah.
And not just doing it because you put money in their bank account every month.
Exactly. There you go, mate. I think that's it. There's some good takeaways there. There is some good takeaways. Definitely got some PTSD. But so next podcast, episode 13.
Yep.
Which we've actually already recorded.
Yep. A little bit of like a Back to the Future kind of way of working.
Yeah. So that's going to come out in a couple of weeks. I can't remember the bloody topic.
Three-dimensional. That's why De Vries's got the mic.
I was just saying, I know exactly what we spoke about. I couldn't remember the title it. Three-dimensional hiring. Yeah, Christ. I haven't had enough coffee. Perhaps it's the decaf.
It's the decaf. I was thinking,
what the fuck was that title?
Too cool, calm and collected coffee.
Yeah. Too cool, too calm, too collected. No, I love that one. That was really, really good podcast. Anything else to add?
No. Everything from me?
No.
Well, thank you for Devriti for the first input properly with a microphone.
I feel like anyone that watches Joe Rogan, DeVriti's like our Jamie.
Yeah.
It's like, Jamie, bring that up, and then DeVriti's already on it.
Well, funny enough, I think that's where I thought of some of that inspiration. We need the third person. Ivana's got the cameras that no one really is going to see to make sure it's all recording correctly, and DeVriti's there making sure that we just don't fuck things up and nod and go, you're on the right track.
DeVriti's the train driver, make sure we don't go off track.
Yeah, exactly. She gives us purpose.
There you go. We're very well tied in.
All right, mate. Well, until the next podcast.
Until the next one.
We'll see you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.